Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off.
Blast off on another episode of Hero Paranormal Podcast, broadcasting from the base at La Madre Mountain, just south of Area 51. My name is Ryan, the original, spiritual hitman of the airwaves, bringing you an epic episode today. And the guest is Brent Boatman. The book, UFO to IFO, to your galactic family and beyond. This is a very important book. In this memoir, Brent takes readers on a journey out of this world to discover who and what we really are and why we are here. UFO to IFO is a collection of Brent's extraordinary real-life experiences and the characters and higher beings he has met along the way. His ability to telecommunicate with identified flying objects and his time studying under a spiritual master have taught him about universal order and design, and who is responsible for it. Throughout these magical pages, you will discover not only how powerful you really are, but also how IFOs are not separate from you, because they are you. These inspiring stories will help you to remember your infinite nature so you can return to your divinity. Get ready for an adventure as Brent shares the path he took to discover his higher self, one that resides above us as part of our galactic family. This is a much needed topic to address. While our media, government, Hollywood, and religious organizations continue to push fear down our throats when it comes to the subject of UFOs and ETs, Brent's awakening is centered around love and how UFOs are our protectors as they oversee this grand experiment we call humanity. Great book, great guest, Brent Boatman. Welcome to the Hero Paranormal Podcast.
Thank you, Ryan. It's an honor to be here in your presence and with you, like always.
Now you have
your company.
you have a very unique story, Brent, and I was blessed to have been able to personally meet you and witness something very extraordinary in real life. To give listeners an idea of what took place, we were in an area of extreme high strangeness. We saw a light in the sky doing something. We identified it. We pointed at it. And you were able to communicate with this, and it was obvious that there was an exchange of some sort. Now, you've learned this marvelous gift, or this gift has been given to you by a master. Could we go into a little bit how you met the master, or how this all came about, Brent? Because it's so magnificent that you have this ability, and I was stunned at your ability to not only interact with this, but it really did. It was an exchange of sorts. Could we go into how you met the master and how this all started, maybe?
Well, if I tell you, I'll give away my book.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
No, it's an honor to have met a master. A lot of people they don't know what a master is. And in short, a master is a human, or one that took human form, that has master over the four elements: earth, wind, air, and fire. They've earned that. And I was young. I was 21, wobbling through life, turning over every stone I could for a fulfillment. And one day my mother came to visit me and left a book on my table. And when she left, there was an emptiness, so I thought I'd open the book. And I opened the book, and I realized the very first paragraph, what was missing was in that book. And that was my first introduction to a spiritual light. I read the book and did the practices. I grew quite quickly away from my normal friends of normal bad habits. And eventually I decided to go to the south of France where the master was and investigate this more. Well, I caught on really quickly the routine and the protocol there. And I never really personally spent much time talking to him on a one-to-one basis. I realized that through meditation, I would receive, a heightened intuition, if you will, and my information would come to me through that and what I call the living book of nature and reading the rhythm and the flow of the universe. And the master, what he did, I realized one day walking, like, why am I learning this stuff so fast, so quickly? And then, boom, a voice came in and said, no, you already know this. The master is here to help you uncover everything and catch you up to speed of where you were in your last life. And I go, got it. So then my journey excelled real quickly, being in his auric field, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there was no real one-on-one contact. He's a very busy man. People from all over the world would come, and you're allowed to ask one question and only one question when you have a 10-minute rendezvous with him. And at the end of the summer, he said, I'm looking for one man and one woman to go to Paris. Now, thousands of people have rotated through this wonderful area called Le Bonfin, the Bonfin, Bonfin. By the way, the master's name is Omram Mikael Ivanhoff. That's with an A. O-M-R-A-A-M. Mikael, M-I-K-A-E-L. Ivanhoff, A-V-I-N-H-O-V. Very important if you're on a spiritual path and you want to read some writings that will very, very basic and will help excel you.
Mm-hmm.
So at the time, I had no interest in going to Paris. I was going back. I've been gone 4 years from America, and it's time to go home. And my mother came to me and said, the master has chosen the one that's going to go to Paris. And, I gave her silence because I really didn't care who it was. And my mom's response was, don't you want to know who? I go, okay, Mom, who? Who's going to go? And she said, he chose you.
Wow.
And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, wait a minute. My hand wasn't even up. I wasn't even jockeying for position, I wasn't up front with all the other choir boys, and I was going to go home. But I said, no, I have to go to Paris. Well, my way was prepared. I went to Paris. I had a nice room in an old home overlooking Paris. And every night I made friends with an old man named Francis and some young sisters, older than me. And they would come to my room, and Francis would have the mysteries of the universe. And he would tell me what's going to happen at night when I sleep and what would take place in the astral plane. And I said, okay. And I would be on guard, and I'd be aware. It's all in my book in depth, what took place. Very spiritual things. And I'll never forget the time when the master said, they came to me and they said, Master, I'm jumping around here a little bit. There's a UFO outside your window. Go see. And the master said, I was too busy working, and by the time I got there, they were gone, and then he gave the formula how to call them. And I said, you know what? After the conference, I'm going to go try it. So I went back up on the Rocher where we would go every morning to meditate. And I sat down cross-legged. I grabbed a friend of mine. We went up there, and she thought I was crazy for trying to call UFOs, right? Come on, that's not normal. And I sat down and I closed my eyes, and I went deep into a meditative state. And I did what he said, and some other people showed up and cut the current to kind of distracted us. So I gave up and didn't see anything. So I said, it's getting late. It's September. You know, the sun's going down earlier. Let's go back down the mountain. So we went back down, and I was wondering about this big circle that was like a turnstile for cars on the property. And I took one step into that circle, and I hear, look up. And I looked up to the right. Over the rocher where I was sitting, there were 5 UFOs. And I showed the girl, and she says, oh my gosh, you're crazy. And my mother and my brother were coming across the circle, and I said, hey, Mom, look. I didn't tell them that. I set out an intent, we'll call it. And they sure enough, they showed up. So fast forward, now I'm in Paris. And one night we're eating dinner, and the girl says, we're out of olive oil. Who wants to go to the basement of the Grand Salle, the big hall, and get it? And I go, I will. I walked out the door. There off the balcony, maybe 100 yards out, was a UFO right there in front of me. It was like it was parked. It was spinning for keeping its balance, and the colors that were coming off of it were just beautiful. Just beautiful. Beautiful colors. Just all different colors. And I watched him in awe because it would be orange, and then it would turn to red, and it would turn to green. What amazed me was there wasn't a color signature from one color to another, and there wasn't a hot spot all throughout the hue of the colors. It was evenly distributed. So I thought, I'm going to chime in with using my telecommunication abilities and see what's going on. And so I lean forward, and I hear, you were meant to see this. This is for you. Now go do what you came to do so nobody will come out and see us. I go, okay. So I went in and the Grand Salle basement, and I got the oil, and I came back out. And it was still there. I looked at it for 5 seconds, and then I go, I got to go. And I went back on the dinner hall, and I sat down at the table, and I handed him the oil, and I didn't say a word, nothing. That was my first real close encounter at the time. And so the winter was over. It's time for me to go back down to the south of France for the summer congress, because every summer the school would open up. People from all over the world would come and listen to this great man speak. And one of the sisters says, I hear we're going to be ushered by our, what'd she say, our friends on our journey. And I go, oh, that's nice. So my brother came and joined us, and he climbed in the back seat of the car, and he went to sleep out like a light. And for 13 hours, Ryan, there was a UFO right above us. I could see it through the sunroof, and one on each side, all the way down to the south. One on each side of the car, there's 3, all the way down to the south of France, ushering us as protectors. They were protecting us. Mm-hmm. And since then, I kind of never understood the spiritual aspect of UFOs and humans. And there were always these circular rainbows, oval rainbows above us at the school in the south of France. Sometimes I counted, and I think the highest was 7 of them above us. And now that I know, those were unphased-in UFOs of the benevolent nature over the school, protecting all of us and giving us enlightened energy and enlightened consciousness while we're there. Wow. And it was very, very fascinating. And later on, fast forward, I leave the school, I come back to America. I was so fish out of water. I didn't fit in anywhere. Well, I have a beer, that's kind of normal, and I didn't even drink. And then it kind of led down a darker path for me for quite a long time, and one day I asked, why am I here? Why am I in such a dark consciousness now when I came from such an enlightened place? And they said, well, if you didn't go here, how would you know how to speak to the ones that did be here, that were here? I said, I understand that, but it doesn't make it any better. And I realized then and there it was just a temporary state, and so I made some changes and slowly started climbing out of the darker path. And until 2018, I bought a Harley. I'm riding with my homies, and we're going down the road, and I stopped, and I said, today is a day for prayer for somebody. Somebody's going to get hurt. unbeknownst, I didn't know it was going to be me. I'm riding home, minding my own business, stone sober, and a drunk driver came up from behind me and hit me at 90 miles an hour. And I flew 75 feet, I rolled 75 feet, I toppled down the freeway, and an orb came in, encapsulated me. I remember seeing it. I was conscious the whole time. We had a come to Jesus meeting, and I said, okay, I got the message. I will do what I came to earth to do. I will do it. They're going, good. I go, okay, I got the message. But did you have to yell so loud? I meant by the impact. And they said, it took what it took. And I go, I got it. I'll do it. So I stood up on the freeway, and everybody's like, it's a miracle. This guy's alive. The ambulance, the doctors, they just couldn't believe I lived. I mean, I even went home that night. Well, I decided to change my life. I left that pack. I left everybody. I started writing my book. A little bit at a time. I never had aspirations at all about writing a book, Brian. I'm not a very literate person. I'm more of a hands-on mechanical guy. So, and I wrote my book a little piece at a time. And also, during that period, I realized I have to pick another profession. I discovered the teachings of Dolores Cannons, who was a QHHT practitioner of quantum hypnosis healing technique. And I became quite a believer in her because I go, she's a master. I've been with a master, and I know what a master is. She is one. When she said, there's nothing that the human mind cannot repair on the human body, I said, that's a bold statement. And therefore, this has got to work. So I decided to enroll in this school, and I did. So I'm going to my level 2 class in Florida, and one of the girls that sat in my row said, I saw a UFO last night. And I'm like, secretly under my breath, I'm not surprised. They have a tendency to follow me, right? And the girl all the way up in the front, never knew her, never saw her, never talked to her, came up to me the next night saying, I had this experience last night in my dream state, and I was abducted, and she was like, in her words, she thought she was. And I kind of talked to her a little bit and calmed her down and assured her she was okay, and it's not. And she was so grateful that she invited me to Las Vegas. At the time, I was living in Southern California, trying to get out of the wet area of Washington. And I decided I'm going to go visit her. And she said, I got a girlfriend I want you to meet. They have this thing called the Pristine Council where they access the Akashic Records, and they wanted me to be a part of it because of my frequency. So I found out. But when I went to meet her friend, Teresa came right up to me the first time. She saw me face to face again, and she said, all right, Brent, what's up with all these UFOs I see following you? I'm like, what? I'm trying to dodge it, right, Ryan?
Mm-hmm.
You know, she says, no. She said, you are a mega airport. I see them all over. And the first thought that went through my mind was, it's from being with a master. You know, such a great man, and being the only one that was selected to go to Paris, and the things that I did in Paris and the training I went through in Paris, you can read about it in my book, it's phenomenal. And every human being has the ability and the right to do the same as I. So Shay had a look on her face like, I don't believe in this. I don't know. I don't know about UFOs. I go, Shay, you never seen one? She goes, no. I go, would you like to see one? She said, well, yeah, reluctantly. I go, okay. They showed me where to go last night. And she's like, huh? I go, trust me. They showed me where to go. So she came and picked me up the next night, and she took me where I told her to take me. And I'm sitting on the tailgate of the truck. I'm busy, like I'm on the Roche again on the mountain. I'm calling them. And she's trying to wrestle with her chair and get it comfortable. She gets it set. She comes out with kind of a snarkle tone and says, so, Brent, tell me how you do this thing. And I'm like, okay. I put my hand very lovingly on her shoulder, and I said, friends, I look up at the sky. I said, this is Shay. She's not really a believer, but she wants to believe. Will you say hello? The moment I said hello, an extraordinary, ultra-powerful flash went off in the sky above us. And there's no way she could deny that. She saw it. And I said, now do you believe me? And I go, what am I supposed to do with this, Shay? What am I supposed to do with this? It happens all the time. I could go to the sky, I could look up, and like I did with us, Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I want to see two come out, and I want to see fly by and leave sparks. And she became a believer. And so we went back to Paris, and she called me the next day. She said, I can't sleep. Bring a nice shirt. Come over, I want to do an interview on you. I go, shit. And the only nice shirt I have is a clean Carhartt. So I went over her house. She did an interview, and she posted it. And she called me. She said, Brent, my phone's getting blown up. But he's want to know who this contactee is. I'm like, first time I've ever contactee. I'll be honest with you. Never heard the word before. And they to her, and they got all sorts of casual conversation information from her, and they wrote a big article on me. Like, what they got all this info, I'll never know. Well, I guess they got off of Google. And so they decided to post a big event. And Shay showed me the article about an event that I'm supposedly going to do that I never knew about. And I'm looking at it, and first I got kind of mad, and then I hear stop from them via telecommunication. They said, Brent, we did this. We arranged this because it's time that you come out now and speak fearlessly and boldly about our relationship and what our role is to be for humanity. And I go, got it. So the event happened. About 40 people showed up. It was a success. Everybody saw UFOs. They were flying all over us. They couldn't believe it. And that's what led me to finishing my book and writing about it and getting it out there to let everybody know that their link is a spiritual link to us to help us evolve and love each other. And they are liaisons to put this planet in better harmony. They're not what the military and the government has told us they are. There's bad ones too, don't get me wrong. And I talk about that later. I talk about that more. But for the most part, they're very lovingly and kind. And as the truth comes out about every move that our society is making, our government's making, we're starting to believe the reverse, and that's the truth. And it's the same thing with them. They're very loving. They're very kind. I visit them frequently. They visit me. They've been in my house. I have conversations with them. I'm very aware, and anybody can have this ability. And so that's my purpose, to teach it and show people the link.
It's fascinating. And, it's so interesting that I was able to actually witness this and see you actually do this. And I didn't even mention that you called in another one with Sparks, as you mentioned. It's a magical thing. And it's very strange and interesting to me, Brent, that the mainstream, whether that be media, government, etc., like you said, it's starting to come around. But for so long, we have been fed completely different information. Your message is very similar, not the same, but very similar, at least in a general sense, to Chris Bledsoe's, who is kind of saying the same thing, that, hey, guys, this is not all you're being told it is. Why are we being told it is what it is when it isn't that?
Well, we're but a fractal of our true, authentic self down here on Earth. That's all we are. We're a fractal. What pretty much what I'm through my observation of humanity, what we all do here on Earth, more or less in a different fashion, we do the same in another dimension of a different frequency to help the overall consciousness of the universe. I'll get to your answer.
Mm-hmm.
The reason they don't want us to enlighten our pineal gland or become enlightened is because one human on the right frequency, like I've seen with my master, can change the complete vibration of a city. He can make every baby shut up, quit crying, make every argument stop, completely can transform an entire town just driving through it. Now, if we were all in this state of mind, this world would not be the way it is. And this is my message, and I give 38 short stories of different episodes that kind of all point to the same direction of the overall purpose of creating a more loving, harmonious universe that steers us away from the overall stigma that we've been raised to believe.
Mm-hmm. And Brent, I want to touch on something that is oftentimes not associated with UFOs, which is past lives. And if it's okay if I read a quick little snippet of your book that kind of taps into that, would that be okay?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay.
What page?
It's page 63, chapter 17, and the magical powers. The changes to my lifestyle were lifting me up internally and making me feel good about my choices to chart my life in another direction. How I felt and how I perceived things were different. My mind was expanding as I uncovered lost and forgotten knowledge of what I had learned from my previous experiences, those before this life. I was receiving information almost faster than I could absorb it. This sounds a lot like a download.
You know, on this note, I gotta tell you, before I even discovered the master, I was walking the streets in Germany, and I'm on my fourth language. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning German now. And I pondered deep down the rabbit hole of the root of a language and how much it takes to learn it, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, they don't morph that much over the centuries or over the millenniums. They don't change much, the languages. The root and the structure is the same. If we all came from the same bottle, then why don't we all look alike, and why don't we all speak the same language? Okay, this is the trigger point. Then my mind goes, why is it that the Asians write in hieroglyphics, which is what aliens write? This is even before I was even discovered or even talked about aliens, and their eyes are the most looking like aliens, and they're most advanced. That, and then it just another download came in, like, we're all test tube babies from another region, and we're all put on this blue marble to see how we get along, like an ant farm in your 7th grade class. This is what we are, right? That was my first download, never even knowing it was a download. I discovered that moment. That is what I call a know that you know. Okay? I knew that to be a fact that could not be erased at all. It was everything just connected. When I was with the master on that quote you wrote, I had this little orange notebook. And before he would come and speak, I would sit down and I would do what you call creative writing, and I'd start writing. And then the master would come out, and he would salute us. And when he did that, he would wipe everybody's mind clean. You could feel an uplifting of spirituality and a vacation from the schmut and the load that you're carrying. It wasn't human, man. It was unbelievable. There's some more things that happened that I didn't put in my book that are phenomenal.
I'm really.
And I would feel.
Oh, sorry.
I would feel so. Go ahead.
I'm really sorry to interrupt you. I'm amazed by what you said, that he didn't seem human, and that he almost seemed like a I believe in the book you mentioned that he was almost like Jesus or something along those lines. So,
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt, the things I've seen him do. You see, the only reason I could see what he, let me finish my story.
yeah. Sorry to interrupt you.
Why I could see it. No, it's okay. So I would do creative writing, and then I'd close my notebook. And then the master would come out 15 minutes later and sit down, and he'd read the meditation for the day or the thought for the day, and then he'd start to think on it. And I could flip my notebook open, and I did it to my brother, and I pointed to the date in the right corner, and then I wrote word for word what he was saying 15 minutes earlier, word for word. I had already written it all down because I was able to climb up high in consciousness and intercept the messages from the heavens before they descend down, and he would speak about them, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. That's downloads, intercepting downloads. And in my little notebook, I was receiving the multiverse, all the different mathematics, the way the hall was built. I could read minds. I could go anywhere I wanted to with my consciousness. It was unbelievable, the journey that I was on. And the most fascinating takeaway for me was my very first rendezvous with him. And I went to say goodbye, and I went to shake hands with him, and very quickly spun me around and grabbed me from behind, and he had my wrist on each hand, my wrist in each arm, and was standing behind me. And he took his arm, and I said, I'm going to show this guy how strong I am. I couldn't move him a quarter inch. This man's 84 years old. It was like a steel machine. I couldn't move him. It didn't matter how hard I pushed. He didn't budge. Not one bit. I'm 21 at the time. Then he took his arms and pushed him in, and he put a light so bright through me, I went completely out. I saw a white light in my consciousness, and I was out. I remember waking up. The woman was holding my arm, walking me down the path from the Master's Gardens, and she said, well, you're in. And I'm like, where? Where am I? And I came to, and I went and laid down, and the gifts that he gave me at that time was just like universal consciousness and universal downloads. One was all and all was one. It was truly an amazing experience, and my book elaborates a lot on all the things that I was able to do and I could see, and the benefits of it to help humanity.
Yeah, and it is very universal. I really think it's neat that this consciousness is something that is able to be tapped into. Apparently, this is no way, shape, or form it is a universal, almost like a brotherhood, isn't it, of the human race?
Well, it is the Great White Brotherhood. Great White Brotherhood. It's the same lineal line of Jesus.
And many who are unfamiliar with that term, this brotherhood has been mentioned throughout history many times without going into who these people are. And I think that's a lot of it, is that it does seem that through this evolution, at least from the outside looking in, that when you evolve enough and you're ready to see and hear them, they appear.
True. Very true. White is the color. Let me correct this. White is the color of the spirit. It's got nothing to do with race or creed, Mm-hmm. And that's where a lot of people, I think they've changed it since he passed away on Christmas Day in 1984. I think they changed that name a little bit because of the stigmatism that's going on with race and everything else. But it's definitely the color of the spirit. And while I was there, I learned a lot of the people were pointed out going, she's the reincarnation of Mary Magdalene. She is, and he is, and everything else. And I gave it no credit, but now I look back and I go, yeah, I totally believe it. when the Da Vinci Code came out, I said, I learned all these things 20 years before the movie came out, and most of it is along the same storyline that I learned living in the south of France. It's just the end of the story of Da Vinci Code kind of got, for me, a little off track from the raw pureness of what I learned in France.
You know,
just a little footnote
Hollywood, right?
yeah, just a little footnote there, you know. In fact,
something interesting as well. It seems, and I can't remember where I read this in your book, but it seems as if the same way we have a hierarchy down here on planet Earth with governments, etc., there is a hierarchy in the cosmic realm.
Yes, there is. The master always used to say that you let out a prayer or you let out a request. He said, you just can't write a letter and give it straight to the president. You know, it's got to go through certain hands and certain chains and certain commands. And it's the same thing in the hierarchy. But I have learned who picks up your prayers, and I have learned who picks up your thoughts. Thoughts are alive. No thought, no feeling, and no action goes unnoticed. Everything every human being does is recorded and watched. I know that to be a fact. It's all recorded. And it's recorded in each human being. There's like three bobbins, if you will, atoms. One for the will, one for the heart, and one for the intellect. And every deed you do is one or the other, and it's all recorded. And when you pass on, you go to the next dimension, the bobbins are put into a computer, and you get to revisit your act, the perspective of the other person.
Wow. It is, it's like a perfect, it's almost like a perfect puzzle.
Yes, it is by divine, it's perfect rhythm. I even had the pleasure of them taking me and showing me how old I am. They said, you know, I was in a ship, and I'm looking what it would look like a window, but it's not. It was a screen, and on the other side of the screen was exactly what I'm looking at, but it was a ship. And they said, would you like to see how old you are? I said, yeah. I said, okay. So these spinning circles with fractals of light coming off of them were all lined up side by side in a row, like you're looking at tires sideways. And down the middle was a long pole down the middle. And they said each one of those circles represents 1,000 lives. And they go, and the line going through the middle is you connecting all of them. And so I quickly counted all the circles. And the moment I got to the end, last circle, snap, the image and the vision was gone. Because they know, I got it, it's done. They take it away. Now, this is my biggest takeaway for everybody who ever listens to this. When you sleep at night and you dream, if you can sit up in the morning and meditate and recall your dreams, there's information in there that will tell you everything about yourself in the universe. You just got to meditate enough to tap into it and get it. It's a fascinating cycle, and in my situation, I was meditating so much that there wasn't a difference between night or day for my consciousness. I was alert all the way through my sleep, and I was conscious all the way through my day. And the pattern would just continually repeat itself. It's like because your mind never sleeps if you think about it, Ryan, right? It never stops. It never sleeps. It never shuts down. But to be aware of it all through the entire process of night and day is the gift of gathering the information and the wisdom from the enlightened state that we can achieve.
Now, this seems like there is a end game in place, and that might be the wrong way to describe it, but that heaven on earth is the end game, or that the spiritual and physical will soon merge. Is that kind of a takeaway, or is there more to it?
That is the ultimate goal. God's ultimate goal was to send us here, and he said basically to you, to me, to everybody, go forth, my child, and learn. So you can come back to me and bring me information so I can create a better world. So we're all down here gathering up information of interaction with each other and life, and we go back and it goes into all funnels, bottlenecks into the big computer, and he looks at it, he goes, let's tweak this, let's tweak that. And so these experiences don't repeat themselves. We are repeating this whole process of this life. We've done this before. We've been here before. We're trying to, God's goal and God's dream would be to have us live in harmony and get along and not destroy ourselves. Last time we were together on another planet, and I believe it was Mars, we didn't make it. We got to a point where, kind of like where we're at now, and it's basically, F you, and they hit the button, and that was the end of Mars, and that was the end of our civilization. But some got in escape pods and came here to Earth. You can see by the cave drawings and talk to the Native American culture. They'll talk about the star people coming here to help them. And some of them went underground. And if you look what we're doing now, we're doing the same thing. They're milling tunnels underground. They're making caves. They're making preparations for the same pattern. And when they tell that to people, they go, well, that's kind of far-fetched and everything. And I said, oh, yeah? Let me ask you this. Where do you think deja vu comes from? We are repeating the pattern. We're repeating the process. And on that note, I encourage everybody to realize that your thoughts and your feelings are alive. And if you see something you don't like, don't feed it, don't hate it, don't dislike it, because then you're feeding the negative side. You're feeding the demonic side. And that is giving them more strength. You need to gather up the strength and say, you know what, I'm going to give this to a higher self to purify it, renounce and denounce it all and get rid of it. I'm not going there. This process is going on every day more and more now. We need to steer away from the darkness and go to the light. And that's what will... and we are winning, by the way. We are winning.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my daughter this. I said, honey, what you don't see is the light going in that's forcing the darkness out. All she's of the darkness, but you don't see the light pushing it out and causing it to come to the surface. Just know that we're winning, and we will win. We are winning.
That is a good message. And before we get too far along in this, there's something else I want to definitely tell the listeners, and that is that you, through this experience, this amazing journey, you have condensed sort of a version of everything you learned, offered a special invitation to people to learn with you and gain insight into the skywatching tools that you've discovered. Can we go into that just a little bit as we wrap up?
Sure. Thanks for bringing that up. In my book, UFO to IFO, which is unidentified to identified flying object, your galactic family and beyond, they asked me not to call them UFOs anymore. They don't want to be unidentified. They want to be identified. They want to come closer. They want to make their appearance here and get along with us. And I'm telling you, if one ever came and you got a chance to see it and see how loving they are and what they do, that you would die with joy and tears and bliss because of the power they have. I've felt it. So what I encourage people in my book is I created a digital online course for under $100 fee. You can take, and it's a condensed version of learning how to call UFOs, which, as a byproduct, it will change your frequency, it will change your vibration, it will change you in a much higher state of mind, and you will find out that everybody has a ship or a higher consciousness that will come out and show themselves when you get yourself ready and in the right frequencies like I did. And I teach that in a short version of, took me 2 years to be with a master. I tried to condense it into like a 45-minute video. If you do this, this, and this, and you practice it, you can go out as soon as that night and see a UFO fly overhead. And you will know without a doubt that is for you.
Yes. And another fascinating subject that we haven't really touched on is that you have had the experience of causing portals to open up. And can you describe those for the listeners and what they appear as?
Yeah, I had a meditation group, and just a small group, and they wanted to see UFOs. And I said, pick the time and the date, and they said, okay, and they did. And I go, all right, let's go. It was about 10 days out. That night, it was a freak fog rolled in. The visibility was maybe 75 feet. We could only do about 45 miles an hour, 35 on the freeway, and it was unbelievable. They kept saying, let's cancel. I go, no, just go. It'll be okay. I know it is because they don't know what I know. So as soon as we turned to go down the woman's driveway off the pavement to the dirt road, it was like Moses parted the Red Sea. We could see all the way down the road to the house. It was crystal clear. And the fog off to the right and off to the left. And they all went, wow, look at that. We got to the house. We went inside. We were all hungry. We had a little snack. And we go, okay, everybody, let's link up. And let's do what you were taught. And we did. And we walked outside a while later. And I was the first one out there. And sure enough, here comes a UFO right overhead. A bright, bright white light. Low and slow, right overhead. They saw it too, and we kind of stood where we could look up, and there's no fog whatsoever. We could see the crystal blue winter sky, and all of a sudden it looked like a shiny silver disc in the air, but it was sideways, and it kept going faster and faster and faster, and it was a portal, and it opened up. And a monster ship came through, and it hovered right over us. And then it took off. And then there was another portal over my left shoulder, and another ship came through. So then it took off. Well, when I do practitioner, QHHT, and somebody is in a deep state of consciousness, and they are accessing the Akashic records, I have permission to ask questions. And I ask questions about that experience. I go, are you familiar with the portals opening up at such and such time and date? And their response was, yes, Brent, you caused them. You called us, we came. And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. I wasn't expecting that answer, But, yes, they opened up. The portals opened up and the ships came through. We can all do this. And that's what I teach in my course, how to do this, how to call them. The electricity and the feeling you feel from when a ship comes over and shows itself is life-changing.
So cool. And Brent, I have to ask this question because it's a very real possibility how our military has engaged in the past with these lights in the sky and how they continue to possibly engage. What is the danger that could bring, if you know?
What, our military engagement with them?
Yeah, it just seems so off the wall, just so, it's something you don't understand, and it just seems like the immediate reaction is destroy it.
They don't. Well, there's a rule or an ordinance if UFOs come within 10 miles of the Earth that our military has the right to shoot at them. Which, come on, man, that's an angry race. That's just so wrong. This is their planet, and they don't stand a chance. They do not stand a chance against them. There was a report recently that from a pilot that a bunch of fighter pilots were off doing their training, And after that, they meet up in the sky at a place called Point Zero that is completely top secret, and nobody knows where it is. They're supposed to all do their training, and then they meet at this place. And there was a UFO there, and the UFO was just toying with them, and then just disappeared. And they did their training, and they went to Point Zero, and when they got there, the UFO was right at Point Zero. As if to go, or
Beautiful.
They don't stand a chance. And I think the biggest savior of all, the difference between the UFO and the military is, I don't think our U.S. government will ever be able to intercept the vibrations or the frequency of the human consciousness and read it from afar or a distance or across the universe like ETs or UFOs can. And that makes me sleep well at night going, they're limited with their range.
And it really seems as if this is an appropriate time for this message, at least for myself and a lot of other individuals, hopefully. The reality that we are all special and we have come to Earth with a mission is a very empowering thing that it seems some don't want people to have those tools.
This is true. That's why they fly and they dump chemtrails and they pollute our water, and they do these things to block your pineal gland from being enlightened, because that is kind of the portal for your downloads and your consciousness. I do breathing exercises every morning to the morning sunrise to open up and enlighten my pineal gland, so the toxins and the environment can't cloud it.
Very interesting. And lastly, I guess a message for our listeners on these higher beings. You know, it seems as if many people, I believe in your book, you wrote, are living without this. And this is something that really can help people in their lives. How can people know that this, other than taking your course, obviously, which is the obvious point, but I think that seems like a really good way to look at this. How can people go through life without being confused from what they're hearing, and just remember that they are special and that these entities are, same team, I guess, or for the most part, same team. And I also wanted to ask you one quick other question, but let me go with that. What can the average individual, if they're not able to take your course, do to get some semblance of the reality of what is taking place?
Well, don't watch the news, okay? Then learn to strengthen and trust your intuition. Listen to the little voice that's inside of you. The one that you've told to F off and go away for so many years, some of us have, like me. But listen to that little voice that's in there. We all have messengers that work for us. Some people have two. They're like guardians. You can use your higher self or that little voice to go off into the future and look at a situation for you and bring you back the answer, whether is it a good decision or is it a bad decision. And if you listen to it, that will help your life move forward in a positive manner with less friction. And that will help bring in more enlightenment, which will change your vibration of who you are. And it's like going down the street and hitting all green lights versus red, yellows, and car accidents. Mm-hmm. That is part of my message, or the main part, for people to get on that path and live that one. It's amazing. You can walk in a room and change the whole room. Have you ever noticed that somebody's really of that vibration and they come in a house and pretty soon the dogs are barking, the cats are fighting, and everything's gone wrong in the house because of the vibration of that one person that came into the house? And it's the same thing with positive vibration. You can learn to alchemize things, once you see it and witness it yourself, you strengthen that, and you use that ability. In my book, you remember the story about the apple and the girl?
Mm.
There's a prime example of me wanting to change the vibration of something. I got much more out of it.
And Brent, for listeners who are not familiar with you, and this is their first time hearing you and your experiences and so on, could you give us any websites or where they can purchase your book and get in contact with you?
Yes. Thank you. Brent Boatman is my name. I have a BrentBoatman.com, or on Amazon, UFO to IFO, Your Galactic Family and Beyond. You can find that book there. I strongly suggest reading it. I wrote that from the perspective that I want it to touch everybody, at least one or two or three or four of the chapters, to realize they're not alone. There's other people out there who have had the same experience. Come together. We have strength in numbers, and we're going to change this world and create a new world. So BrentBoatman.com, you can find it there. BrentBoat, like a boat and a man.com. You can also, there's an open-ended video there. Click on it, and you could see me talking to a UFO and it responding back with a light. It flashes back to my questions. And on the back page, there's a couple other UFOs that I need to share this real quick.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the UFO in Bellingham. I was asleep, and I had a download during my sleep. It said, "Now, Brent, when you wake up, we want you to go to the balcony and look over the water and see the big, beautiful ship that you were just on." And I go, okay. I woke up, I went to the balcony, I grabbed my camera, and I'm filming this monster ship in the sky right out over the water at 4:30 in the morning, and then a big, almost like a planet of a ship came in. It's boring. It's a purple flash of electricity, and in the center there's a circle of a monster ship phasing in. And that was the one I was on. It was about 40 football fields in width and height. It was huge. It was so huge. And they said to me, "We will be back tomorrow too." And I go, okay. And I filmed it again the next day, flying overhead saying goodbye. So we're saying goodbye, and it flew right over my head and said goodbye and left the solar system.
So cool.
I know. Yeah, it's way cool. And I just kind of took the time to do my due diligence and find out who I am, and I uncovered it, and I was able to connect it to where I'm at. Everybody can do that too and end up in the same spot.
Well, you are an amazing guy. I had the pleasure of meeting you. I got this message for somehow your book, everything we've been discussing today. It all appeared at the correct time, at least for me in my life. So that's very synchronistic. And I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast and for all your sincerity and all you do to help others and just all you do. Thank you, Brent. And yeah, I highly recommend the book, and hope we can have you on again sometime.
I'd like to, Ryan, and I really, really enjoyed your company that weekend. We had so much fun. Poor Nick. We had a great time.
Yes, sir.
We had a blast.
It was
and
wonderful.
I'm glad you got to experience the UFOs and them coming out on demand, It's almost what I was going to call my book. My course is called UFO on Demand, by the way. You can find that, too. But, yes, thank you so much. Blessings to everybody that hears this message in this podcast. You're not alone. We are all thread together. I love each and every one of you, and I hope we can meet. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. Guys, what a guest. What a podcast. What a message. What truth. Brent Boatman. Definitely go to BrentBoatman.com. See what you can see there. And on a personal message, I happened to experience this at a time, much like I maybe insinuated. It seemed like his message, this book, everything kind of happened at a time in my life when I needed to hear it. And as many conspiracy-minded individuals think, there is no such thing as a coincidence. So I'm going to go with Brent's recommendation and look into this. I think everyone else should too. And until next time, keep your eyes to the skies, feet on the ground, but don't forget to take a look around.
Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off, blast off, blast off. Come blast off in my time machine. Third eye feeling like an Evazine. Blast off, blast off.